Hello and welcome back to the Münster podcast. I'm your host, Charles, here with Isaac and Ben, your other hosts as always, and I'm also joined here with two guests. We have Tim and Freddie. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thank you.
How is everyone doing today?
I'm doing quite alright.
Very good.
That's very sad, Ben.
I'm currently eating an apple.
Right.
Green apple.
Well, today this is our final episode of season 1. After this episode, we will have a short. I think we'll have a short break anyway. But today is the last episode. So today we will open with our first topic because we do have a few things to talk about here. This is a topic that we've been wanting to talk about for a while, but we've unable to have the right people to talk about it. And today we're going to talk about anime, which is a strange. It is a strange choice, just of a subject to talk about.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I mean the reason we've waited so long is because we needed a great opportunity to have Tim. I can't speak English today. I'm so sorry. We've waited for the opportunity to have Tim on the show, and as you can tell by his anime profile picture, he is a complete degenerate, which is why we are talking about anime.
Of course.
Now, more specifically, I do recall having a conversation with Isaac. Oh, this was like many months ago. Why are so many right-wing nationalists, particularly from Europe or like the USA, obsessed with Japanese culture? Okay, now none of us here are particularly that into anime. I think there's a difference between watching the odd anime and actually being like straight up really obsessive over it. So that's why we have Tim here. So could you please explain to us what is so fascinating about anime?
Explain yourself, Tim. You fucking creep.
Okay.
Disgusting degenerate.
Well, I'm not sure about the correlation between the two, to be completely honest with you. However, I do know, or at least I assume, why a lot of them are obsessed with anime as a subject or as a medium is because, unlike the West, I feel like a lot of Asia has remained a lot more traditional and down to its roots. Rather, Europe has very much expanded into a more global everything. A lot of our traditions are getting changed and modified to fit more with the modern world. Whereas in Japan, especially, I feel like has kept a lot more to their own traditions and are very much not into foreigners. So I think a lot of people that get into nationalism and the such can really they like the idea of that and use that as an example of their basis for a lot of why they like it so much.
Would they not be the very foreigners that Japan don't really like?
Oh, of course, but a lot of these people, well, I don't know about the actual like proper weebs that want to live there and stuff, but I know a lot of people, myself included, to a certain extent, like the way they view how their country should be more than how they do their own, like how their politicians handle situations at the home front. They prefer the Japanese way of handling, where they're much more put the Japanese people first and any foreigners that come to live here second, and they're a lot more strict on who they do and don't let in, where here it just feels like they just let anyone in at this point. They don't even have to speak the language. Doesn't matter where they're from. There's no background checking. It's just let anyone in. Whereas in in Japan, they're a lot more.
We found between the right wing nationalists and then having a sort of like a love for Japan. I wouldn't say love, but they kind of want their country run that way, I guess.
Yes, that's what I thought as well.
Okay, well, interesting point there. So you have right-wing nationalists enjoying what you are describing as a more traditional Asia in comparison to Europe, at least.
Yes.
But the interesting thing about that is that a lot of progressive girls are obsessed over K-pop and Korean culture, and you could make the same exact argument about Japan with South Korea. So does that rule of they are more obsessed with the country's culture because of the politics apply to all medias, sort of fandoms and whatever, or is it mainly just for anime? Because I'd say pretty much 90% of the people that are obsessed with South Korean culture and K-pop are all progressives. I mean, I think a good example is when they raided that Donald Trump rally and like screwed up all the
Yes.
tickets.
Yes.
So do you not think it's something more than just that?
Well, I feel like when it comes to, because let's be real honest here, I'd say the majority of fans of K-pop, especially, are girls, obviously. Yeah, I don't know a great many men that really love themselves some K-pop, but I feel like women do it more for the boy band aspect. That K-pop especially has a lot. They have these men that look incredibly feminine compared to how men look here in the West. And a lot of girls are really into that sort of thing. So I feel
You,
like it's more of that when it comes to K-pop specifically.
I guess when you look at K-pop, there's not really much about, like, it doesn't say much about Korea. It's just literally a boy band. I'm sure half these girls they hardly give a shit about South Korea,
Oh yeah,
and
exactly.
they're just there for the boy band. Whereas with like anime, a lot of animes are based off sort of, like Japanese high schools and just I
Yeah,
guess like life in
exactly.
Japan, and then people will see that and go, wow.
Well,
lot
the
of
thing
Exactly.
about
Wow,
that,
so
do you
so
not think that in these TV shows that the Japanese make, their culture is obviously they're going to romanticize their own culture, right? They're going to make it look
Oh, of
good
course.
in the shows, and I think that when these fucking weaves, right, watch these shows and think, oh, Japan's amazing, I want to move there. They don't know what it's actually like because they're looking at kind of like an exaggerated, like sweetened
Oh
up
yes,
version.
definitely. Um, I've looked into. Obviously, I do not want to move there. I'm not that weeb to the point where I'm like, oh, I want to live there. Not at all. I'm quite happy living here where I live in the Netherlands. Obviously, Japan being a country has its own set of issues, but it's always for a lot of people, especially people when they're younger and they get into anime, they get this period where you get obsessed with the media for a period of their life, and you look back later on and you're like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck was I doing? And I
Why
think a
haven't
lot
you
of
done that
people,
then? Why have you not done that, Tim?
there was a big period where I really wasn't into anime. Originally, I got into anime when I was around 13, when the whole Hatsune Miku thing started blowing up on YouTube. If you guys
What
remember
the fuck
that,
is that?
way
That's like
back in the
Oh
literally
way,
my
the
god,
the live
Tim.
concerts.
sort of some pixels strewn together to look like the image of a girl, and you are, wow.
Wow, you
Yeah,
got a
no,
power boy on it. You're like, oh.
yes. No, originally I got into anime because of that. I was watching these videos and I really liked the music, and I thought it was, for its time, it was amazing to see like a hologram on stage. You're like, holy fuck, this is crazy! What the hell? You'd never seen something like it. You only ever saw people on stage, and suddenly there's like this cartoon character, to put it that way. On the stage dancing and shit. You're like, well, that's fucking crazy. Um, and I think originally because of how YouTube was laid out back in the day, YouTube would just recommend shit that's similar to what you were watching. So I got recommended an episode of anime on YouTube because a lot of episodes of anime were uploaded on YouTube back in the day before they really got into banning anything that's copyrighted. So I watched my first anime on YouTube, and that's how I got into it originally back in the day in 2013. And after that, oh, sorry.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
yes.
Going back to the main topic, which was kind of the link between anime and politics. Otherwise, we wouldn't
Oh, yeah.
cover this
Sorry.
on the show.
Yes. Sorry. I'm shooting off a
So
bit.
so you made the point that Asian countries tend to be more
Bullshit.
traditional, which is less traditional but more conservative. I think that's the right word.
Yes.
Which
Oh, I do believe that also
I think you
people
can
like
see that a
more
lot
to
in
that
countries
tradition.
like China. Obviously, most Middle Eastern countries, Japan as well, South Korea. Although, I'd say Japan and South Korea, they're very Western, so I'd say it's a bit less there, but definitely
Oh
still very
yes.
present, especially in comparison to European countries. Like, you definitely say South Korea is way more conservative than, for example, the UK or Germany or
Yeah.
Sweden.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely by a lot.
Here's the thing though that I'd like to bring up. Most Okay, well, I'm not going to say most because I don't watch anime regularly at all. I don't know much about it. But the common conception about anime is that it's tailored for like young men. So
Yeah.
the often women are presented in a way which isn't very conservative and isn't very
Yes.
traditional. So where is the link there then? Because surely somebody who doesn't know much about Japanese culture, because they are they don't really care because they care mostly about their own country's culture. How do
Yes.
they actually find out about Japan through anime when the front of anime or the stereotype of anime is something that really they shouldn't be interested in if they are so keen on conservative ideas and tradition.
Well, I think that in Japan they're not. But obviously, they're quite politically conservative. Obviously, with like Tim said earlier, it's like the immigration policies and stuff like that. But they are definitely not sexually conservative.
Oh no, not at all. No, not in the slightest.
But then okay, but I'd say Western conservatism is somewhat sexually conservative.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
So then
Yeah,
how does
but these people, these like weird like Nazi weeaboos and shit, yeah,
Yes.
they're all like horny teenagers, and they want to see that.
I get. Yeah, I feel like it is that exactly. I think, and obviously now that anime is going more and more mainstream, like back in the day when I originally started watching, it was a lot more niche of a thing. You said, oh, you didn't talk about it. You never said to anyone, oh, I watch anime. But nowadays, it's getting more and more normal by the year. I feel like in a few years, it'll be the same thing as watching anything else on Netflix. Honestly, as how it has been going, considering that Crunchyroll and stuff has been blowing up. All these major media companies like Amazon, Netflix, they all are buying into this market because they see there is a future for this. It's massive, you know.
Can I
And
just say? Can I say something? People will shit on anime, but you've got to realize that there are still Western cartoons that are incredibly bad, or just as cringeworthy. For example, Big Mouth, which is
oh
got to
yeah,
be
Oh my
fucking
god, that is so
worst
bad.
such a
It's
bad
so
film.
bad.
alive. And Rick and Morty, to an extent, you've if you associate
You
anime
have.
with the people that watch it, they're typically seen as like cringe or they're
Redditors.
yeah.
socially awkward kind of people. Who's about to say Redditors?
Redditors right now, yeah, no.
Redditors,
I mean, they are Redditors, aren't they? At the end of the day,
A lot of them are
But there's also Rick and Morty, which also has a small portion of people that
of
watch
just
it that are just
absolute awful
incredibly
fans.
annoying
Yes.
Redditors.
Yeah.
the
I mean,
classic Reddit moment.
The problem I
yes.
see here and what correlates with all the bad TV shows is Redditors. So I have a
Yes,
feeling.
that is a
I
very
have a
good point.
feeling that
Consumers,
you know,
they're all
Red is it the shows that are a problem or is it Reddit? The gathering of the weeaboos, the incels, the Nazi weeaboos, the worst of men,
The
the
communist
worst of
Nazi
people,
weeaboos.
the
What I
worst
see
people.
as well a lot with anime, is gathered this stigma from people. See, obviously, you're gonna always notice the awful fans first from any fandom on anything ever. The same as with
But
people
they
that
shout the
really.
loudest, don't they?
I mean, yeah, of course, there are a lot of them. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people, I personally enjoy anime a lot, but I know a lot of people that I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, you are such a fucking weirdo. Like, Jesus. These people, they get too into it. I think it is fine as a hobby. It's like any other fandom. It's like, I personally don't really see the much of a difference between really liking Harry Potter or really being into anime. It's just something you do as your pastime. As long as you aren't weird about it, I don't see the big deal with it. But obviously, anime being anime, it's already got more of a wow factor for a lot of people that are from the West compared to Harry Potter because it's from another country and they're speaking another language. And obviously, a lot of the things they
It's
do
a
in
bit
these
more niche,
shows,
isn't it?
exactly. But a lot of the things they do as well in these shows, um, is more based off the culture in Japan. Obviously, anime is a gross over exaggeration on how everything goes over there, right? There's obviously no giant mechs flying around in Japan fighting each other every fucking day, right? Obviously, but just even the behaviors that these characters have, it's obviously all over exaggerated. But a lot of these kids that get into anime, they obviously think, oh, this is what Japan is, which is obviously wrong. And I feel a lot of when you get older and watch more and you mature as a person, you realize that that's obviously not the case. Japan is like any other country. It has its nice things that you enjoy. It has its things that you think are awful. Because I think every person that is into politics is well aware of the issues that Japan has. The economics. The aging population, work stress being absolutely awful. That sort of thing. So obviously, Japan, like any other country, has its problems. But for a lot of these kids getting into anime, they don't see that because they don't live there and they don't know about it. They don't hear on it on the news, like they would from their country at home. because obviously their parents and other people they talk to, they're always talking about the issues that play at home. If you're from the UK, you will know what is going on.
Yeah.
But me being Dutch, I don't know a lot of the more
Um,
like deeper run issues in the UK, for instance.
so earlier you brought up the you brought up how really there isn't a difference between an anime fan and you said an example or a Harry Potter fan, which is fair enough
Yes.
because that makes sense, right? They are although anime is it's a bit of a broad term, but if we named a specific anime, then that would fit, yeah.
Yeah.
And there is no difference because in the end these two groups of people, I mean, we talked about it in the white woman episode and the Harry Potter episode. They're just here to like hoover up all the like merchandise and watch all the shows
Yes.
and whatever. There's no different.
They are both
His-
disgusting.
Yeah. here's where I think what's missing from what you just said though. The reason anime gets a lot of that stigma, and I'm not saying that it's fair that they get that stigma, is because they generally attract a lot of controversy in terms of sexualization of people and
Oh,
minors.
definitely. Yes,
especially
definitely.
because although you could make that argument about some other franchises that we're all familiar with, I don't think that really applies to some of the biggest franchises like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Marvel. Do you know what I mean? But I think that
Yes.
applies to a lot of animes,
Of
if
course.
that makes sense. So I think
Yes.
that's where that the kind of negative view towards anime and anime fans comes from. Well,
A
I'd,
lot of
I'd
the
also like
stigma-
to say.
oh.
Oh, sorry, go on, Tim.
I think a lot of the stigma as well is a lot of people obviously they know anime for the, as I call them, the trash shows. The really trashy, like over sexualized, just ridiculous shows that like most anime fans are not interested in. Like anyone that's just really into the media of anime, they will watch the more like serious shows, and a lot of these shows have really good stories. And I feel like where anime shines a lot above Western media now, especially, is they're seemingly a lot more creative on the like subject matter, and how they do things. The dialogue is really interesting, the way they tackle, like they have, you have so many animes for so many different people. You can be into really story driven anime, you can have a really simple like actiony anime if you're feeling that. There's something for everyone in anime. And where I feel like anime shines a lot now as well is it keeps to its medium and it's just for fun. Whereas a lot of media now in the West is more and more reminiscent of real life, and I don't think media should ever go there, especially like video games as well now. A lot of shows on Netflix, they all portray real life issues. But what people fail to realize is that people get into pastimes media, like such as movies, series, and games to escape real life for a minute, forget about things, get your mind of the world. And where anime really does that well, you can get into an anime, it'll have like the only issues playing in the anime will be in that world. It's not none of the things that a lot of Western media do now, where they have to have a black character, a woman, a minority, a transgender, otherwise the media is just bad. Where you're constantly reminded of that in a lot of modern media. It has to be progressive. It has to link up with the current political ideology of the world. Otherwise, it's bad media. And you're so much like reminded of that whilst watching newer media that you sit there and you think about it. When I watch the new Star Wars movies in the cinema, all I could sit there is they hired these people because of their gender or their race, and that is the reason. Whilst I could watch the old Star Wars movies, the original ones from like back in the 70s and 60s, uh, it doesn't feel like that at all. I can look at Carrie Fisher playing Leia back in the day. I'm like, they just hired her, because they thought her fitting for the role of Princess Leia. I can look at Lando Calrissian and just think they hired him because they thought he was fitting for the role. Mace Windu being played by Samuel L. Jackson in the prequels, it doesn't spark that feeling for me. But when I look at the new trilogy of Star Wars, for example, all I can think is they had Rey there because of her being a woman, and it shows in her character as well. You know,
I think
she's
with
just
Star Wars,
ridiculous.
I think with Star Wars, there's a lot more. The issues with those new trilogy films are there are a lot more. There's a lot more issues than just it was politically correct. Like
Obviously, the
definitely,
director
because I
was a
think it
fucking
is
idiot.
definitely possible to have a female lead and a black side character and have
Of course. I mean,
good set
Star
of
Wars
films.
always had them. The thing is, Star Wars always had this. If you look back, there was never a movie in Star Wars history.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, which didn't have a woman main character. But the
So,
thing is,
okay,
Leia
so-
felt
so the
genuine
main-
and cool.
So
Padme felt genuine and cool. You know,
so
but-
another reason why these redditors, we're just gonna call them redditors now, are we?
Alright, yeah.
Is
fair
that where
enough.
do you all agree we're just gonna call them
I
redditors
mean,
now?
sure.
we could call them many things like cave creatures, disgusting human beings, but I think Redditors
Goblins.
sums it up.
Yeah, Redditors are worse than
troglodytes.
all of those. Just
But
Redditors
yeah,
are worse
so,
than
no,
all of
but
those.
you know, more so we're more so looking at, you know, nationalists and you know, European Western traditionalists, because there's kind of irony there, but as you've kind of explained, it does
Yes.
somewhat make sense. But I'd also like to say that, okay, so another reason why these, well, you know, right wingers like anime is because it's politically unaligned. It basically
Yes.
is that it then?
I feel like you know, there's a time for politics and there's a time for just getting your mind off things in the
Mhm.
world, you know. You get tired, especially nowadays. I notice, just let's be real here, you know, everything you do nowadays, politics is always brought up. You know, every time you go on your phone, first thing you see on Google, the homepage is politics. You know, you go on social media, everyone's talking about politics. You know, you go on watch a series, it's politicalized. You know, there's got to be a black character, it's got to be a woman. And you're like, you can never get your mind of these issues ever. It's just always in your face every single day. And I think because of that, we have experienced more of a rise in right wing because people get tired of it. People
Well,
get tired
a
of
lot of
constantly
people
being brought up with
do.
these issues, you know, like constantly just hammered into you, support gays, support blacks, support people get tired of it. It's like, yeah, we get it. Most people already do. You know, no one's had an issue. I'm speaking for the Netherlands. I don't know how it is in the UK, but generally in the Netherlands, there is not a lot of racial tension, right? It's fine here. We like no, there's not. I've never met someone that's racist here in the Netherlands. You know, no one hates black people for no reason here. You know, I don't hear people going around yelling the N word here at black people. You know, there's no such thing here really a lot. Like, I'm sure there is obviously people out there that are that stupid, but they are a definite minority. You know, when it comes to behavior, the average person does not care, and I feel like that is for the most of the world. I think the biggest nation that's currently being plagued by a lot of actual racial issues is the United States, but that has, you know, a different background compared to a lot of Europe. But I don't feel like there's a lot of, you know, racial prejudice in a lot of Europe. But yet we are treated as we are doing as such. You know, we are treated as if, you know, every white
Alright,
man in
so
Europe is
why?
going
So yeah,
around
Isaac.
going at, you know, people for it. Sorry, go on, Isaac.
I think that now more than ever, people are using political like activities as, you could call them, pastimes. People
Yeah.
they sit down and they will, you know, you might want to watch an anime, I don't know, man. You might play a video game, you might read a book, right? And then, but sometimes, like, these people, they're sitting down and they think, you know what I'm going to do to pass my time today? I'm going to make this post about politics. I'm going to, like, put together this graphic which shows data about these, like, particular problems. And I think that they are starting to do these things not only to like spread the word of these issues that they feel strongly about, but just to pass their time like you would anything else.
I guess so. But
And I think that that is part of what's making, as you said, politics so, like, intertwined with everyone's daily life, is because it's becoming increasingly, like, normalized for people
Yes.
to do politics
Yes.
or, like, become involved in politics for fun.
I see that. I
And
just feel like
I think
I'm
that's
sorry.
I think actually, you know, I agree with a lot. I agree with a lot of what Tim said about, you know, political correctness and how it can ruin things and how it can make people feel, you know, bad for no reason and stuff like that. But actually, what Isaac said, I think that's a very good point. And actually, I think the fact that politics is more approachable than ever, I think that's actually is a very good thing, and is actually why, you know, we here in this call on this podcast are actually able to talk about politics very openly, very
Yes.
freely, with a varying amount of opinions. and really talk about it whenever you want. I mean, we're doing this in our free time, and I think that's a it's a definite sign of progress in civilization, like as a whole. Because usually politics is only reserved for educated upper class people, but now everyone's, most people are
do
educated.
believe that is a double-edged sword, though, considering that I do feel a lot of people do not have enough knowledge about the world and how things operate to really be talking about a lot of these issues. A lot of people suffer for the problem of simplifying politics nowadays, I feel.
Don't you think that's a symptom of democracy, though, rather than
it
everyone
is
being a part of politics? Because actually, if everyone was very educated but there was no democracy, then that wouldn't be an issue. So is that more of an issue of democracy or education?
I feel like if you are going to get into politics, you need to make sure that you look into everything, and I feel like a lot of people, they are blatantly just or even purposefully ignorant of a lot of the things that go into forming their opinions. I always have tried. I've been a fan of politics as long as I can remember. It's always been something that I've been very passionate about, even before it became really mainstream. Even back in 2013,
Even
when I was a
before it
lot
became
smaller.
mainstream politics.
It is kind of mainstream nowadays to
politics.
just you know what I mean. Everyone's into politics nowadays, but there was a big period of back in the day where that wasn't the case. The average person online didn't really care about
But are
politics.
you sure that
Politics.
isn't just because you were younger and you didn't really come into contact with these things?
I did look at everything always. I looked at everything just the way I do now. I try to look at every side of the argument. I try to apply reason and logic as to what their argument is. But I feel like in a lot of the things you see nowadays are very much just people seemingly creating issues to me. They are so well off in the country they live in the West, because we have it pretty much the best, like pretty much the best here. I'll be real honest. Like in the Netherlands, there's no stressful work. You're well protected by unions. Your healthcare is taken care of. You have nothing to worry about on average, right? If you ever are in a pickle with your economics, the government will help you out. You have to do really, really bad for yourself to end up in a bad situation. Um, so a lot of these people obviously will never end up in this situation. So they have their lives so well figured out that they feel like they need to have something to be bothered about. Because I feel like humans in general are just negative in a way. That they're very negative.
They're
They
always
always
looking to
have
get
something.
better or have some sort of
Yes.
agenda. Is that what you're saying?
I feel like a lot of people are just negatively set up, where they always, feel the need to have an issue with something. They can't just accept things that as they are. That they don't seemingly do not want to be happy. Because I feel like a lot of this, racial issues here in the Netherlands would simply not be a case if people just didn't care about them. Like,
Well,
we have a holiday here.
isn't that the whole point of it though? Is to bring awareness so people start caring about it. Because if
yeah,
nobody
but the
cared
thing is,
about it and it was still there, then that would be
no,
an
what I
issue.
mean, no, I get that. No, what I mean is, for instance, I'll use, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but here in the Netherlands we have a holiday, right, around Christmas, um, and our version of Santa Claus in the Netherlands is helped out by black people, right? There's people, white people, they paint their face black, they paint, they paint their lips red, and obviously this looks really bad from an outside perspective, right? But like a lot of black people have said in the past before, if you see a racial issue in everything, then it will become an issue to you. Because if you really look at it, right, I get that if you initially look at this, it looks awful, right? I get that. I truly do understand that. But if you really think about it, it's really not a big deal, because they're not doing anything to ridicule you. If anything, they're putting you in a good light. They do not know the history behind this holiday. They do not know where it comes from. All they know is that they're offended by it. They don't even really know why. I feel like it's just, it looks bad, therefore it is bad. It's not, why do I think it is bad? It's just, it looks bad. That
Okay,
is their only objective issue with it.
Okay, so we're gonna move on here. So we were originally talking about anime, now we're talking about black people. What an interesting transition
Nice.
that was.
Yes.
But actually, I mean, what you are talking about will link well into our second topic, which is nationalism redundant? And that does kind of link with what we are talking about earlier, because we were specifically talking about traditionalist being weeaboos, which I still find strange.
Yes.
But you know, like,
Can I say
you,
one more thing about
you are
anime?
of European culture and you're obsessed with Japanese culture, whatever, right? So is nationalism and traditionalism redundant, right? And that does link, very closely to what you said about Sinterklaas, I believe, yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
I think that to answer that question, no, would be incredibly Eurocentric, because obviously Europe has had issues with its balance of power. We've been fighting wars for hundreds of years, and a lot of those have been based on nationalistic ideas.
Yes.
But I think in this like long period of relative European peace, maybe nationalism here is redundant because we're not fighting over land anymore, or at least not as much as we used to. Obviously, there's problems with like Crimea, maybe Northern Ireland, but relatively we were in quite a peaceful period.
Oh yes.
But I don't think that you can fully answer no for the whole world, right? Because in Asia, nationalism is still like alive and well, and to be honest, it is probably needed because they've got problems with their balance of power, just as Europe did have a couple hundred years ago, with like China and India kind of trading blows. You've got a
Yes.
lot of problems over there, which they may need. They're going to need a unified people to deal with within each country and culture.
Yes. I agree with that much. I also
I'd
feel
also like to add very briefly. Sorry, Tim. I think
That's
that
fine.
it's a very good argument. I think that also applies to places like the Middle East and particularly Africa, where
Yes.
these people have not had independence for a very, very long time.
Right. Well,
And
the thing about
they are kind of carving their nation, their identity. I think another very good example. I mean, we discussed this a few episodes ago when we were talking about tragedies of history, and I think you brought up China as well, which is another good example because not only China itself needs some nationalism to keep its country basically intact, but then the peoples within China have their own versions of nationalism. So the Manchurians, Mongolians, Tibetans. Muslims, etc., and that applies to most Middle Eastern countries and African countries too. So I think what you said, I agree with that.
I think as China becomes more sort of built up,
African countries haven't had a chance to.
Wait, okay. I think as China becomes sort of more, developed, it's kind of still on the rise. I'd say it's very close to being kind of, obviously major in terms of like globalization and like big cities. It's obviously going to attract a lot of people from around the world, and then as those people come in to do work or to do sort of trade, I guess, the nationalism is going to kind of fade out. But I suppose you still got the Tibetans and the Mongolians. There's still problems around there, considering China is such a big country. So obviously those problems there are going to arise. But within the sort of major cities, there's you've got mix people mixing. Like a melting pot, similar to London. We've got people coming from all over the world to work and stuff like that.
I think a lot of people from around the world are not very keen on living in China because of how it's set up, though. Because obviously China is very much more like locked down compared to Europe. It's a lot more censor. It's a lot more censored in what you are and aren't allowed to say. You go to work. I can go to work right now and discuss with my boss on how shit I think the current government is, and we need to get a new one. If I were to do that in China, I'd disappear,
Oh yeah, I
or
mean,
I wouldn't be
no
able to
doubt that
take the
they're
bus anymore.
no doubt that they are a totalitarian, government. But I
Exactly.
think
So I think a lot of people from around the world do not have a very keen interest in living there, considering that
plenty of people do though.
And I think if China wants to, keep attracting these people to work, they're gonna have to kind of stop it
open
because
up a bit
people
more.
are calling them out on their bullshit.
I mean, I'd like to disagree with that, for the time being anyway, because until this generation that is kind of dissenting and very upset with China and whatever, I think upset's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Until that generation becomes the CEOs and the presidents and prime ministers, nothing will change in terms of relations with China. And I say that because they've been doing this for a very long time, and they kind of have this policy where it's like, look, if you want to do business here, which you probably have to do, you shut the fuck up, and it's worked because
Right, well,
Donald Trump these world leaders, haven't, they may have said it, they may have denounced some of China's, basic ethnic cleansing, on like offhand, but they've never really made it, part of their firm foreign policy. Yes, Donald Trump was like, yeah, we'll sort out China, but let's be honest, not a lot has happened, and it's because a lot of these countries, a lot of businesses rely on China, and as a result, it's like, are you going to put your morals over your business, the business which you created for profit? So
Yes.
I think with China, it's going to take a while for that transition to happen. It won't happen in 10 years. It won't happen in 20. It's going to take a lot longer than that. There's definitely going to have to be a regime shift. Kind of like a Mikhail Gorbachev sort of thing. For it to change, because a lot of people are relying on China.
Yes.
Well,
China is the factory of the world at this point. They make everything.
It doesn't rely on immigrants in the same way that maybe Europe or the United States.
Oh, definitely not. They have a lot of people.
Yeah, they've got a lot of people. They're all fairly well educated. They've got a lot of like institutions and
the strange thing about China
like that.
Oh, sorry. The issue that China has currently for itself is that, domestically it is very divided between, the rural areas and the big cities. Because the big cities, obviously, they're massive, these massive business centers, they have some of the largest companies in the entire world there. But then you have the rural area, and there are still mines over there that operate using steam trains. In 2020, they have operating steam trains. There's this huge divide between the business centers of China, these massive cities like Beijing, etc., compared to the more like northern, or not north, the western part of China, which is still very rural. There's not a lot of business there. The infrastructure is very poor, the education level is low. And I feel like China has a lot to work on for it really to be able to, to put it into words, mobilize their entire workforce to let work on the same level compared to, here in Europe, where pretty much every single person has the same level of education. There's still a very large divide in wealth and education in China.
Okay, so we talked about nationalism a bit in China and how that could possibly change in the future, and we did touch on the Middle East, but you can go find more out for fuck's sake. You can go and find out more about that stuff in a previous episode called The Greatest Tragedies of History, where we do discuss, separatism and stuff like that in the modern world. Now, going back to the original question about nationalism, so we said no for Europe, but
I do believe for Europe it is important.
Yeah, does anybody disagree with that? Because
yes,
right-wing populism is getting very popular in Europe. Not overwhelmingly popular, but you look at certain regimes, for example, in Austria, in Poland, and in Italy, and you might get the impression that, oh, look, it's kind of taken over. So, and they're very nationalistic regimes too. So we got to think, and obviously Russia, but we got to think, are they in the wrong for being that nationalistic?
Well,
no, definitely not. I don't think so.
I'd say there's a split between Europe in terms of nationalism. There's the Western side, which is a lot less nationalistic now, whilst on the Eastern side, I think there is a nationalism is a lot more present, and it's similar in Asia. The more Eastern you go, the more you see nationalism, I think, is a good way to put it, because think about it. Austria, I think, maybe around that area. Poland, you could also say. Lithuania to a certain extent, but it depends on how you look at it. There are a decent amount of European countries that are still nationalistic, and maybe it's not like what it used to be, where it's all about fighting for land and stuff. But you could say that maybe nationalism has evolved as we have evolved, and that nationalism isn't necessarily just about land anymore, and that it might have been developed into something else.
It definitely has. I mean, if you look, even here in the Netherlands, obviously it's not taken off quite like you said, like in these other nations. But in Germany, in France, even more Western nations, to put it like that, it has been getting more popular amongst youth as well. And I feel like it has to do with the current situations of everything. It very much ties in with everything being politicalized. Like
so do you think
the immigrant issue, for instance, I
do you
feel like
think
is what's
it's
pushing.
reactionary then?
So partially yes,
so
and I think
is it mainly caused by direct reaction to a more liberalized society, or
yes,
is
I
there
do.
something else in play here?
I do feel like it is a lot of it is reactionary because a lot of people that normally weren't interested in politics, in the recent years have been getting into politics, and I feel like it's a lot based off, I think there's a general um, unhappiness with a lot of people, myself included, that the current governments seem incredibly weak. And I personally, in my opinion, when it comes to political ideology, I think people need a very strong leadership in a country to make sure that everything runs well. People are guided towards being functioning members of society. Um, Companies are made sure to be kept in check because
Well, you
if you
don't
let
necessarily have to be
monopolies,
nationalistic to believe that people should work
of course
and stuff like
not,
that.
but of course not. But obviously, a lot of the more liberal ideas they shift more to letting people do their own thing. Where nationalistic people will be more towards the already set in place jobs like mechanics, auto manufacturers, that sort of thing. Whereas a lot of more liberalized people that do think obviously should work, they're more free about it. They're more interested in also getting artists and such, which I feel like a lot of nationalists aren't as much interested in. And of course, there is the issue with immigrants, for instance. A lot of Europeans, I feel like, are shifting towards this more nationalistic sentiment because they see their country slowly but surely being, replaced. That they need to. For here in the Netherlands, for example, I'll mention that holiday again. A lot of people have a very big issue with that. We have to change our holiday based off people that haven't lived here as long as we have. For me as well, I feel very sentimental about the Dutch people. We have fought wars to free ourselves from the Spanish. We set ourselves up as a nation. We fought for what we have now. We
Okay,
fought to
so
earn our
sorry.
place in the world, and to see that just
Yeah, sorry,
be
just to
replaced.
interrupt you there though. So you mentioned earlier about why should we change our traditions for people that haven't lived, their heritage doesn't belong to this particular set of land, yeah?
Yes.
But why does it make why? Okay, so why is it decided that you have more right to live here just because your ancestors lived here than somebody who's literally come here, because they want to find a job, for example?
Well,
I
yes.
mean, because when I think it is generally the better thing to do that if you go and live in a country, you should adapt to them, not the other way around. I think that's a very wrong mentality a lot of these immigrants
So
share.
if you move to Saudi Arabia with your wife, for example,
I wouldn't.
Okay, no, but I'm saying if you move to Saudi, right? Okay, let's say there's a massive
In
apocalypse.
technicality, yes.
Okay, let's say there's a massive apocalypse that wipes out all of Western Christian type countries. Okay, and also most Asian countries that are fairly liberal, so South Korea and Japan and Taiwan.
Yeah.
Okay, and also Australia. So the entire world except Saudi Arabia. You have to move to Saudi Arabia with your wife, and you've got like 2 daughters, and by that logic, would you be okay with your family following Islam? I don't think that's that extreme.
I think it is, because obviously, first of all, that never fucking happened.
Okay, right, but it's the same logic, though, don't you think?
It's hypothetical.
No, yeah,
it's
hypothetical.
Okay, right, but I'm just seeing
I see what you're
I'm just
trying
seeing
to
if your
argue.
logic is fair, though, because I think
that would come with its own set of problems, because again, politics is a very complicated issue. If something like that were to happen, obviously there'd be a massive. How many people from the West would be moving to this country?
No, but it's hypothetical, isn't it? So let's say you and your family, for whatever reason, didn't have to be an apocalypse. Let's say funny, okay, you move to Saudi Arabia and you've got you've got a wife, okay, and she's not Muslim, okay, but obviously in Saudi Arabia, as we all know, they're very pious, okay, and as a result, very strict. They're very strict with women, okay. So would you,
yes.
even if you disagree with it?
If it was no other option, I guess you'd have to.
And you're not allowed to protest about this, by the way, because you live in their country.
But the thing is, see, that's such an extreme example.
That's not very extreme. It's the same logic, though, isn't it?
No,
because
no.
Because what you've more or less said is that these people, they're not technically from this country. So I'm assuming you're talking about the original migrants here, not their children. Because I think that's a little bit different, okay? So these people that come to
still very much get raised as, Muslims more than they get raised as Dutch people.
Okay, I mean, I'm not talking about Muslims. I could be talking about, German immigrants, but, whatever.
German immigrants,
so people from from a different country come to, we're talking about the Netherlands here, and
If they're
do
willing
they
to
not have
adjust,
a right to say, look, I don't like what you're doing in this country, just because they're
well,
not from this country?
well, they move here based on the assumption they want to come work here. Then if you come to move to a country or you want to work, you want to live, I think you should adjust to where you're living. You shouldn't expect the country around you to change for you. That's
Okay.
just
Oh, yeah,
self-centered.
that's fine. That's fine. So, what's the difference between that and you moving to Saudi Arabia then?
Yeah, the thing is, I wouldn't.
Okay,
It's
no,
such-
that's
it's
not
such an-
that's not that's
I
not what
know,
I've asked
I
you
know
though.
what you're
I've not
trying to
asked you,
argue,
would
but
you
that's
like to
such
move
a.
to Saudi
I know,
Arabia?
I know what you're trying to argue, but that's such a extreme
It's not that
example to
extreme.
try and I think it is
It
because
isn't. It isn't.
obviously
Right?
it
Can
is
I
because hear
interject
me out,
here
please hear
and
me out,
just
hear me
say
out for a minute.
that if in this situation that you described to Tim, okay, and obviously you said that he thinks that if people move to the Netherlands, then they should adopt like Dutch customs
Yeah,
and
obviously not
things
to the
like that.
extreme. I don't expect them to completely forget where they come from,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
but
yeah.
if,
But
for the
I
basic
think that
sense, they should
if
accept.
personally, if
Sorry.
I had to move from here to, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, let's use your example, Saudi Arabia, I would obviously you don't want to let go of where you came from, but I think that personally I would adapt to their lifestyle as necessary, but
Yes.
then within reason and within the comfort of me, my own home, or obviously when people move places, they end up setting up their own communities and stuff. Like obviously you've got huge like Pakistani, Indian communities in Britain. I think that people who've moved to another country, they will join together and they will practice their culture from back home together. And then when they do have to follow the customs of whatever country they've moved to, most of the time they will.
Yes, I do agree with that.
Okay,
Most
so
of the time they will, but
what you were saying though with, Christmas and the basically the equivalent of elves, but they're
yes,
normally. I'm going to assume that black people can be these elves too, because why not?
obviously.
But
yes.
traditionally, because that's what we're talking about, tradition and nationalism. It was white people putting.
I mean, it was never defined that it had to be white people. It's just
Okay, yeah,
Dutch
but
people
traditionally
are
it
white.
was. Normally it was because
Yeah, obviously
white people
because
live
we
in the
didn't have
Netherlands. So
black people.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
yeah. So they'd put black paint on their faces and then the red lips, or am I putting words in
Yes.
your mouth? Yeah, red lips. Yeah.
No, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then, then you also said, oh, just because somebody's moved here, they're it's completely silly for them to protest about that. But would you? Okay, so we're gonna use a Saudi Arabia example here. Would you think it would be, obviously it wouldn't be equivalent because the issue with burqas is completely different to, Christmas.
Yes.
But would you also say to yourself, look, I am not going to protest about burqas because this is not my country at all?
Yes, I would. If I were to move to a different country, I would adopt, the general consensus of how to behave there. Let's say, as an example for anime, a lot of people, if you're gonna move to Japan, they want you to change. Where in the West, that is not demanded. I think that's, a lot of what a lot of people, to bring back our previous topic a little bit, a
But
lot of people,
when it
thanks,
comes to
dog.
these, sorry, when it comes to these like customs that I guess with the burqa example, these are sort of based on teachings of Islam and the sort of Quran. I guess would you still be like, even if you had to sort of conform to their customs based on Islam, would you still move there? Would you still try and adopt their culture, even though it might
Um,
not be from a religion that you worship? You know.
I think I think I wouldn't. I don't. Okay, first of all, to reflect, on my own views a little bit here. Um, obviously, I don't demand Muslims that come and live here in the Netherlands to completely, forget their religion and all. I think it is perfectly fine for them to practice Islam at home. Practice Islam, in churches that are here for them. Where I think I draw the line is when they demand Dutch women to put on longer trousers because in their culture it is generally not accepted to wear shorts, where here it is. And I think that's where you very much draw the line. Not only do you demand your own woman to dress like how they did back home, you also now are demanding our woman to dress the way you want them to. And I think that's a bit extreme because I wouldn't do that. If I were to move to Saudi Arabia, first of all, they wouldn't let me be as, open about what I believe as, we allow them to here, first of all, because it's not how that works over there. But, putting that aside for a minute, let's say they did, then I very much, obviously, I wouldn't want to practice Islam because I don't believe in religion. I'm not religious myself. But if the demand for the law was, for my woman to wear a burqa when she's out in public, I would. But I find this argument with Saudi Arabia a bit extreme because obviously a lot of these people, they do very much have a choice. You're putting me in a position where you're saying you have to move to Saudi Arabia. These people, they don't have to move to the Netherlands. They don't have to live here. They want to. They want to live here because they know that the West.
Charles created you know.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
I feel like
I guess if you're talking,
I
sort
get
of in
what he's
general,
trying to
of course you don't
say,
have to- of
but
course you don't have to move to Saudi Arabia because
the
guess
thing,
there's not
I
many-
feel like with these arguments, it's a very it's a hypothetical argument, as Charles said, but to try and gauge someone's political opinion off of that is, I think, is a bit silly, considering that you're trying to pretty much call them out for the hypocrisies in their line of thought, but a lot of things, a lot of this isn't set in reality.
We'll move on to our third and final topic. And okay, so as of recording, it's the 15th of August. Okay, and a lot of stuff has happened this year, obviously. But how do you guys think the year is going so far?
Right, it has been truly and utterly awful. Right,
in comparison to the year 536 AD, it's not.
Oh yeah, when they were eating shit and stuff. Shut up, right? In modern civilization, right? In modern civilization, this has got to be one of the worst years ever. But for me personally, right? To be honest, the lockdown thing hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be. However, I had to watch my fucking football team play the worst brand of football for like 4 months, right? Watched us get beaten by chavs, literal chavs in the league. And then next thing you know, there's a virus, goes round, kills just basically clotheslines every old person in the general area. Fucking then we're in lockdown, and then we get our AS results, and the AS results just screw literally everyone, and we're screwed. We're all screwed. I don't know what to say. We're done. I don't know what to do. It's been such an awful year.
How about you, Isaac?
I don't think it's been that bad. Obviously,
I don't think it's that bad.
It's been the pandemic, people have died, but not me. So
yeah,
I mean, the UK is now in a recession as well, officially.
We're going to be eating shit.
I don't think I'm gonna feel the effects of it.
You think?
Obviously, I can look into the future and think that the events of this year are going to kickstart things that don't go too well later on. But at present, and just with what has happened to me personally this year has been fine. But
Isaac, your opinion sucks.
In later years, events of this year.
I'm gonna make a post about it on Reddit.
Do you think the next decade will be poo and we'll be eating shit?
Literally, we're gonna become fucking Southern Sudan too.
I'm
gonna move to Japan and everything will be like paradise.
Oh my god, you're gonna see Tim then. Tim's gonna have his trad wife, and you're gonna be so happy.
I know the major event of this year has obviously been coronavirus, and honestly, in about 20 years, I don't know, 100 years' time, no one's going to remember it, just like the Spanish flu, I guess. But we can also remember the things that happened before that, one of them being World War III nearly started, and the second of all, Australia was on fire for a good, I don't know, month.
I mean, that's probably going to happen again in the future with the climate. It's going to keep going.
All the white girls cared about it.
I think
I'm
I think
gay.
what we've very much been shown is that fucking a lot of people are really dumb, and social media is not doing anyone justice
moment.
because
Says the
literally-
person who watches anime and
I
wants a
don't
trad wife.
care.
Don't you
I
fucking
don't
dare
really care. At
say.
least I
Don't you
don't go
dare look
around-
down upon people.
At least I don't go
Don't
to
you
Aldi
dare,
and yell
you
at, like, some
benevolent
minimum wage
shit eater.
employee for having
You
to wear a
terrible
bloody
human
mask.
being. You terrible human being.
Literally,
How
I've
dare
been
you look
avoiding
down
the
upon
stores like the
people.
So
birds.
those were our overviews over the year so far. It's the 15th of August. I mean, for all we know, tomorrow they could. I mean, what's the best that could happen right now? Someone tell me.
Nothing. Everything's
Anime
going to
becomes
shit.
real.
Anime
we all go into
becomes real.
Amprim, and then we live life as ape.
Right,
Yeah.
the best thing that could happen is Boris Johnson goes, "Have you heard of this anime thing? Yeah, I'm banning it." That would be the best case
That'd be the perfect
scenario.
thing to happen.
I could die peacefully,
I think.
honestly.
Okay, so to conclude,
We
I
ban
think
anime.
To
everyone has to watch Big
conclude,
Mouth.
everyone's ignorant here. You're all stupid. Good to know.
this has been a really good season.
This
This has been
episode
episode
was
15.
monster.
This has been episode 15. Thank you very much for watching. And
Alright,
we'll
no,
come back in a few weeks, hopefully with season 2, unless tomorrow the greatest thing in the world doesn't happen and anime doesn't get banned. And oh God, what's the worst thing that can happen then?
Anime gets banned. That's the worst thing that could happen.
Okay, right.
Oh my God, shut up, Tim!
Last-
I would never
last-
have Tim
So
on this
he
again.
changed his
Last
profile
good
picture
bit-
to an anime profile picture. That's the
La-
worst thing that can happen.
That'd be the funniest thing ever. Last like bastion of decent media in the world is gone now. Now all we can watch is
The dog is here. It's signaling the end
The
of a
beast.
podcast.
all we can watch
Stop
now
Tim
is
Ramos.
transgender black people shooting white guys on TV.
Just end the podcast, Charles, otherwise Toby's gonna
no,
die.
no, I'm
Toby's gonna
joking.
kill you.
We're gonna
Yeah.
get taken down because Tim's
We're gonna get
he's gonna have a
fucking
Freudian
banned.
slip and just say the M word. That has been
Aye.
the Munster podcast. Thank you very much for watching. Anybody have any final words to say before we wrap it up for season 1?
Anime
This
bad.
episode was a
Anime
disaster.
bad.
I hate anime. And
You
women.
guys are all gay.